Hello everyone, in today's video I'll be going over how to draw a girl, and I'll be talking about some tips and tricks that I use whenever I'm drawing. So I'll go over the step-by-step process of how I created this drawing. So let's get right into it. For the sketch, I like to keep the initial sketch pretty simple with basic shapes. I don't like to put too much detail into the initial sketch, mainly because if I ever need to erase something, it will be easier to do so, and then I wouldn't have to keep redrawing all those details over and over again. So if you keep it nice and simple, then it just makes it easier to work with and erase if needed. I also like to keep the sketch pretty light so that it just makes erasing a lot easier. If I were to make the initial sketch of darker lines, it would be pretty difficult to erase that. But yeah, I always like to think of, a sculptor, like how sculptors have, they start off with like a block of clay, and then they kind of slowly chip at it. So I'm just doing the same kind of process here. Keep the shapes very basic initially, and then slowly add in details, chip at the shapes. So that's what I'm doing for each part of the drawing here. Then for this character that I'm drawing, I envisioned her as standing, staring away from the camera. So the things that I think about is like how is she leaning? Is she leaning to the left, to the right? How is her posture? So for this character, I was envisioning her shoulders to be back, her hands to be in front of her, kind of clasped in each other. Then she's kind of leaning towards the right, and then her right leg is over the left leg. So those are just different things that I like to think about. Then for the hair, I wanted it to be kind of like gentle waves. So I added one main wave to the drawing, just like right below the chin. I was thinking like about layers of the hair. A lot of times the layers kind of frame the face, so that's why I put that wave right below the chin. Then for the face, there's like two main guidelines that I like to draw. One for the eyes and then for the nose. I like to draw guidelines on the face just so that I can have an idea of where each facial feature will be in relation to the others. And once I have the features that I want, then I will go over with the pencil again. I like to always start with like an HB pencil and then pick out the lines that I like with a darker pencil. I like using a 6B pencil, so that's like a darker version. Here I'm drawing details on the shorts. I wanted these shorts to be like of a denim short, so I added details to it, like the belt loops, pockets, those things. Then I'm just drawing the legs. For the shoes, I wanted it to be like kind of like sneakers. So I was envisioning this character kind of like going out for like a run, maybe like kind of like on a summer day when it's nice and warm. So that's why I actually added some sunglasses here. So that was totally a last minute decision actually to draw these sunglasses, but just the background story of this character, when I was thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, adding sunglasses would totally work here. So I just always like thinking about background stories of characters that I'm drawing. It just helps me kind of think about the like kind of what outfits they would wear, how would they be standing, like their pose, like their hair, how would it be styled, things like that. I feel like if there is a background story, it just helps with the drawing a lot more easily. Then I'm just going over the lines again with my pencil, just picking out the ones that I like, erasing the ones that I don't want, and just erasing any guidelines that are left on the page so they don't interfere whenever I'm inking. Then here is when I start the inking process. I used one fine liner for this, so I just went over with all the different lines. One tip, I guess, for inking is just to go slowly over each pencil mark. I feel like with inking, since you're trying to go over that pencil lines, which is kind of hard to do, sometimes you kind of just miss the pencil lines, or well, at least I know I do. So what ends up happening is that because the ink line is kind of slightly off the pencil line, the drawing ends up looking a little bit different than what you started off with. So that's why I like trying to go slow to make sure that I can get the drawing right and accurate to the best of my ability. Now I think there is some beauty to the inking process. Like, yeah, the drawing won't look exactly the same, and there's beauty in that. You never know what you're going to end up whenever you draw something, what you envision versus what actually is created can be totally different. So yeah, then here I'm just erasing all the pencil marks that I have on the paper just to clean it up before I start coloring. Then here I start actually painting the drawing. I used acrylic paints, and you can see here some of the ink actually started bleeding through, and the perfectionist in me literally just dies because I was looking at the painting as I was drawing it, and I was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? So I just kept continuing painting over the other areas of the skin so that that portion close to the right eye can dry, and then later on I'll just go over it with paint. So that was the plan that I had. But throughout this entire painting process, all I could focus on was that right eye, and that's literally all I was thinking about. But yeah, mistakes do happen. It's part of the art process. It's all about how you react to it and how you continue, because not all of the lines will be perfect, or not all the coloring process will be to your liking. So you just gotta continue onwards and just try to enjoy the process. So like here, by the time I painted everything else, this part of the face was dry, so I went back over and painted just the areas of the skin, so at least that everything would have one tone of color. Then speaking of this skin color, so the color I mixed a bunch of different colors to get this skin color. This actually was a challenge to get this color. So I actually have these tubes in front of me. They're a set of 12 tubes. And the color I use here, let's see, it's called Burnt Umber. That was one. And then I used Burnt Sienna. So I initially just used those two, but then I didn't really like that color. It kind of seemed dull. So you know what I did? I added some pastel pink that I mixed earlier, which I used for the shirt. And once I added that pink to that skin color, it just added so much life to that color. So I'm pretty happy with the color I ended up with for the skin color. But yeah. Then for the hair, I just used that brown color, the dark color. I created 2 different shades, one for the highlights of the hair and then one for the darker portions of the hair where it's like in the shadow, you know. So yeah, this is the pastel pink that I was talking about that I used for the skin color as well. So one thing that I'm learning as I am painting different with acrylics is that to just try to use the colors that are already on the palette. So like whenever I'm trying to create new colors, just use the colors that are already there in that color scheme rather than trying to grab a new color. And this way, like, you know, it'll make the colors more cohesive and all the colors will match well together. So that's what I want to do. When I initially started painting this drawing, I didn't have a color scheme in mind, which is why I kind of ended up with this color scheme, because I have my default colors that I go to. I like to call them as like my happy colors. So those colors for me is pink and blue. But I kind of want to challenge myself to use different colors that I normally wouldn't use. So that's one goal for me in the future. Here is where I think the drawing starts really coming through. I start inking over all the paint and I finally fixed the right eye, which made me so happy. Literally, that right eye was bothering me so much. But yeah, I went over the paints with this brush pen, and literally throughout the entire drawing, I was unsure if the brush pen would actually dry or not. So I made sure not to touch the drawing at all so that it would dry. It was a gamble. I didn't know like if this technique would work or not. It was just something that I wanted to try, but it ended up working pretty well. So with this brush pen, what I like to do is I like to kind of create darker or thicker lines for the outer lines of the drawing, and then for all the tiny details use like a lighter line. So with a brush pen, if you put more pressure to the brush pen, it creates a thicker line. So, and if you like draw lightly with the brush pen, it creates like a lighter line. So you can achieve like different line widths with just this one brush pen, which is really nice. So yeah, I like playing around with that. Then for the background, I decided to go with this pastel light blue color. I took the color from the denim shorts and added a lot of white. The shade is called titanium white, but yeah, I like to think of this color as like a nice sky blue color on a bright summer day. That's what I was thinking about as I was painting this. And I was trying to smoothen out the paint to the best of my ability so that none of the streaks would show through. Also, when I was painting the background, I was literally getting paint all over my desk and all over my fingers. And then my palette had paint everywhere. So yeah, acrylic paints are a lot of fun, but they do get messy quite quickly. But I do love them. I think it's just so incredible, like the amount of colors you can create with just 12 tubes of paint. It's just like there's so many different possibilities you can create with just these paint colors. So yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to in my future drawings. Just playing around with the different color schemes. And yeah, I think I also go over the acrylic paint, just some areas to add shading with color pencils. So some areas over the skin, I just add blush. But yeah, this is the completed illustration. Thank you all so much for watching.